January 1st. The first day of the year, a day that should have been filled with hope, with a promise of new beginnings. Instead, I woke to a cold, hollow silence that clung to the walls like frost. I felt it before I opened my eyes, the emptiness beside me, the absence that hit me with the force of a blow. Her side of the bed was cold, untouched, the pillow perfectly undisturbed. For a moment, I convinced myself she was in the kitchen, maybe making coffee, watching the snow fall outside like she always did on winter mornings. I listened for the soft hum of her voice, the clinking of cups. But the house was silent, oppressively so, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for me to understand. My gaze fell on the note. It was neatly folded on her pillow, a small, fragile thing, but it felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. I picked it up, my hands trembling as I unfolded the paper. Her handwriting stared back at me, delicate and familiar, the curves of each letter so deceptively gentle. This was the last year I spent with you. My breath caught, the air around me turning colder, sharper. I read the words again, slowly, letting each one sink in, burning their finality into my mind. This was how she chose to end it. No confrontation, no explanations, just a note left behind like a discarded thought. I looked up, my eyes moving to her closet. The door was ajar, revealing the empty space within. Her clothes were gone, every hanger swinging slightly, mockingly. It was meticulous, almost clinical, the way she had erased herself. Every drawer was emptied, every trace of her methodically removed. It was as if she had never been here at all. 7 years. We had been married for 7 years. I thought we were happy. I thought we were content. I thought so many things that now seemed laughable, foolish. She had been living a lie, sharing herself with another family, another life that I knew nothing about. 7 years of deception, of playing the role of a wife while her heart, her loyalty, belonged elsewhere. The room spun, the walls closing in. I stumbled to the window, needing air, needing to breathe. The snow was falling outside, soft and silent, covering the world in a pristine white that felt cruelly indifferent. Life went on. The world continued, oblivious to the devastation tearing through me. I wanted to scream, to shatter the quiet, to break something, anything. But I couldn't move. I stood there frozen, the note crumpled in my fist, my body trembling with the weight of it all. How long had she planned this? How long had she known she would leave? New Year's Day. She had chosen this day deliberately, as if the turning of the calendar could erase the years we had spent together. As if she could simply walk away and begin a new life without me, without a second thought. But she hadn't just left. She had shattered everything, left me standing in the ruins of a life that was nothing but a lie. I felt a coldness seep into me, a frost that spread through my chest, numbing the pain, hardening my heart. I would not cry. I would not break. If she could leave without a backward glance, then I would erase her just as completely. Every trace of her, every reminder would be purged from my life. I would not be haunted by her ghost. She had made her choice, and now I would make mine. If she could be this cruel, this calculating, then I would be just as unyielding. I would not be her victim. I would not be the broken man she left behind. My face hardened, my jaw clenched as I turned away from the window. There was no room for grief, no space for forgiveness. She was gone, and I would not mourn her. I would erase her, just as she had erased herself. I moved through the house with purpose, cold and methodical. Every room bore her touch, her presence, and I would not allow it to linger. Her belongings were gathered, boxed up without sentiment. The sheets were stripped from the bed, her perfume bottles discarded, every photograph taken down and thrown away. It felt like I was purging a poison, cleansing myself of the contamination she had left behind. There was no hesitation, no regret. I was resolute, unfeeling. She did not deserve my tears, my pain. She did not deserve anything from me. If she could start over, then so could I. If she could forget me so easily, then I would do the same. I stood in the center of the bedroom, now stripped of every trace of her, my heart cold, my resolve unbreakable. This was how it would be. This was how I would survive. She had chosen her path, and I would walk mine, unyielding and merciless. I would endure, even if it meant turning my heart to ice. The days blurred together, one after another, monotonous and empty. I moved through them mechanically, my actions precise, calculated. I woke up early, before the sun had a chance to warm the cold walls, before the silence could press too heavily on my chest. I went to work, stayed late, and returned home only when exhaustion dulled the edges of my thoughts. It was easier this way, to keep moving, to avoid the stillness that waited for me. The house was hollow, stripped of her presence, her laughter, her warmth. I had made sure of that. Every trace of her was gone, erased with ruthless efficiency. The rooms were rearranged, the furniture shifted, her belongings packed away and discarded. I wanted no reminders, no ghosts. But no matter how hard I tried, the emptiness remained, a void that refused to be filled. People noticed my absence. Friends reached out, their concern wrapped in words of sympathy, but I ignored them. I didn't need their pity, their questions. I didn't want to explain, to relive her betrayal with every retelling. She was gone. That was all they needed to know. I severed ties, isolated myself, surrounded by walls I had built to keep the world out. I was safer this way, unreachable, untouchable. I worked longer hours, burying myself in tasks that kept my mind occupied. I took on more projects, stayed late at the office, volunteered for responsibilities I didn't want just to avoid coming home to the silence. It became routine, a rhythm that kept me moving, kept me from sinking. But no matter how busy I kept myself, the nights were inescapable. The darkness settled in, heavy and suffocating, wrapping itself around me. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, the emptiness pressing down on me, mocking my attempts to erase her. I could still feel her absence beside me, the cold, vacant space where she used to sleep. I hated it, the way my body remembered her warmth, the way my mind conjured up memories I didn't want to see. I tried to fight it, tried to lock the memories away, but they slipped through the cracks. Little things, the way she laughed, her voice humming softly in the kitchen, her fingers brushing against mine. I would find myself standing in the doorway, staring at the empty counter where she used to stand, her presence so vivid I could almost believe she was still there. It infuriated me. I wanted to forget her, to erase every moment we had shared, but the memories were relentless, cruel in their persistence. I hated her for it, hated the power she still held over me even after she was gone. How dare she haunt me like this, after everything she had done? How dare she leave me with nothing but memories that wouldn't let me rest? I grew colder, harder, shutting down every emotion that tried to surface. I refused to be vulnerable, refused to be broken by her. She didn't deserve my pain, my tears. She didn't deserve anything from me. If she could walk away without a backward glance, then I would forget her just as easily. I convinced myself that I felt nothing. I repeated it like a mantra, turning the words over in my mind till they lost their meaning. I told myself that she didn't matter, that I didn't care. But the lie tasted bitter, acrid, every time it left my lips. I could hear her voice, echoing in my memory, laughing at my attempts to forget her. The anger grew, a cold, seething fury that simmered beneath the surface. I hated her for what she had done, for the lies she had told, for the years she had stolen from me. 7 years of deception, of pretending to be my wife while living a double life. 7 years of sharing herself with another family, another man, while I remained blind to her betrayal. I replayed every moment, every memory tainted by the knowledge of her lies. I saw the signs now, the little things I had ignored, dismissed as harmless. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way she had grown distant, distracted. How had I been so blind? How had I allowed myself to be deceived so completely? The anger burned through me, scorching away every lingering trace of affection, every sentimentality. I would not be her fool. I would not mourn her. She didn't deserve my grief, my sadness. She didn't deserve anything from me. She was gone, and I would make sure she stayed gone, even from my memories. I became colder, more ruthless in my determination to forget her. I avoided people, cut off every connection, every reminder of her existence. I threw myself into work, into tasks that left no room for thought, for reflection. I refused to acknowledge the ache in my chest, the emptiness that followed me like a shadow. I would endure. I would survive this, even if it meant turning my heart to stone, even if it meant feeling nothing at all. She was gone, and I would make sure she was forgotten. Weeks passed. Winter deepened, the days growing shorter, the nights colder. I moved through them in a daze, detached, unfeeling. I kept myself busy, consumed by work, by the monotony of routine. It was easier this way, to keep my mind occupied, to avoid the thoughts that threatened to surface. I was efficient, mechanical. I woke up before dawn, showered, dressed, and left the house without looking back. I spent my days surrounded by people, their voices a constant hum that kept the silence at bay. I buried myself in paperwork, meetings, tasks that required my full attention. I became the first to arrive at the office, the last to leave. Colleagues noticed the change, their glances lingering, their curiosity poorly concealed. They asked questions, careful, cautious inquiries about my well-being, about her absence. I brushed them off with cold indifference, gave them nothing to pry into. I was fine. I was moving on. It was no one's business but mine. Outside, the world continued, unchanged, indifferent. Life went on. People laughed, celebrated, made plans. It felt distant, surreal, like watching a play through frosted glass. I was disconnected, detached from it all. None of it mattered anymore. None of it felt real. Nights were the hardest. The darkness wrapped around me, heavy and suffocating, pressing in on all sides. The house was hollow, stripped of her presence, but her absence lingered, a haunting shadow that followed me from room to room. I hated the quiet, the way it echoed around me, mocking my attempts to forget. Sleep became elusive, an enemy I couldn't conquer. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, the silence pressing down on me until I couldn't breathe. I closed my eyes only to be confronted with memories I couldn't escape, her laughter, her smile, the way she used to curl up beside me, her warmth seeping into my skin. It felt real, vivid, and then I would wake up reaching for her, only to find the bed cold and empty. I began to resent the nights, the darkness that refused to release me from her ghost. I tried everything, exhausting myself with work, drowning out the quiet with noise, even moving furniture around, as if changing the house could change the way it felt. But nothing worked. The emptiness remained, constant, relentless. I grew colder, harder, my emotions locked away, unreachable. I refused to be vulnerable, refused to be broken by her. She had left me, chosen another life, another family. She had made her decision, and I would not let it destroy me. I would endure, no matter the cost. But the anger grew, festering beneath the surface, cold and corrosive. I hated her for what she had done, for the lies she had told, for the years she had stolen. 7 years of deception, of pretending, of sharing herself with someone else while pretending to be my wife. I had been blind, naive, a fool who believed in her love. I replayed every memory, every conversation, every moment we had shared, searching for signs I had missed, clues I had ignored. I saw them now, clear as day, the distant looks, the late nights, the careful lies. How had I been so blind? How had I allowed her to deceive me so completely? The betrayal cut deep, sharper than any wound. It wasn't just that she had left, it was that she had never truly been mine. She had shared her heart, her life, with someone else. Another family, another man who had taken what was supposed to be mine. 7 years of lies, of playing the role of a wife while living a double life. It made me sick, the thought of it, the realization of how thoroughly she had betrayed me. I hated her. I hated her for the way she had left, for the cold, calculated note she had left behind. No explanation, no confrontation, just a few cruel words. This was the last year I spent with you. As if our life together meant nothing. As if I meant nothing. I couldn't forgive her. I wouldn't. She didn't deserve my forgiveness, my pain, my grief. She didn't deserve anything from me. If she could walk away without a backward glance, then I would erase her just as thoroughly. I would purge every memory, every reminder, until there was nothing left of her. I grew ruthless in my determination to forget. I cut off people who asked too many questions, severed ties with mutual friends who might remind me of her. I erased her from my life, piece by piece, memory by memory. I refused to speak her name, refused to acknowledge her existence. She was gone, and I would make sure she stayed gone. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape her ghost. She lingered, haunting me in dreams, in memories that surfaced when I least expected them. I would catch myself thinking of her, imagining her laugh, her smile, her voice whispering my name. It infuriated me, the way she still held power over me, even after all she had done. I couldn't let her win. I couldn't let her destroy me. If she could move on so easily, then so could I. I would harden my heart, turn to stone, feel nothing. I would bury every memory, every emotion, until there was nothing left but coldness. She had chosen her path, and I would walk mine, unyielding, merciless. I would survive this, even if it meant becoming as cruel and unfeeling as she had been, even if it meant feeling nothing at all. Time lost its meaning. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months, each one as hollow and empty as the last. Winter faded, replaced by the hesitant warmth of spring, but I barely noticed. Seasons changed, the world moved on, but I remained frozen, trapped in the aftermath of her betrayal. I kept myself busy, a relentless routine that left no room for thought. I worked long hours, took on extra responsibilities, filled my days with tasks that required my full attention. I became efficient, methodical, unyielding. There was no room for weakness, no space for emotion. I couldn't afford to feel. The house remained cold, empty, stripped of her presence. I had erased her, removed every trace, every reminder. Her belongings were gone, her photographs discarded, her memory purged from every corner. I thought it would help, thought it would free me from her ghost, but the emptiness persisted, a void that refused to be filled. I tried to ignore it, to harden myself against the ache that gnawed at my chest. I repeated the lie until it became routine. I feel nothing. I don't miss her. I don't care. But the words were hollow, meaningless, a fragile shield that cracked under the weight of reality. She was gone. She had left me, walked away without a backward glance, without an explanation. I replayed that morning over and over, the cold emptiness of the bed, the note left behind, her cruel, final words. This was the last year I spent with you. I could see the handwriting clearly, each letter etched into my memory, taunting me with its simplicity. I wanted to hate her. I told myself I did. I repeated it like a mantra, letting the anger harden me, turn me to stone. But beneath the fury was a pain I couldn't escape, a wound that refused to heal. 7 years of lies, of deception, of sharing herself with another life, another family. It made me sick, the thought of it, the realization of how thoroughly she had betrayed me. I questioned everything, every memory tainted by the knowledge of her lies. I saw the signs now, the subtle hints I had ignored, the distant looks, the secretive phone calls, the unexplained absences. I had trusted her, believed in her love, her loyalty. How could I have been so blind? So foolish? I hated myself for it, for the naivety, for the way I had let her deceive me so completely. I had been a fool, a pawn in her game, oblivious to the truth. I replayed every conversation, every moment we had shared, dissecting them, searching for the lies hidden beneath her words. It became an obsession, a cruel torment that kept me awake at night, my mind trapped in a never-ending cycle of questions. Did she ever love me? Or was it all a lie? Was I just a convenience, a safety net while she lived her double life? I didn't know anymore. I didn't know what was real, what was true. She had shattered everything, left me standing in the ruins of a life that was nothing but a facade. The anger grew, cold and corrosive, seeping into every corner of my mind. I hated her for what she had done, for the way she had left, for the years she had stolen. I hated her for the memories that haunted me, for the ghost that refused to let me rest. I hated her for making me feel this way, hollow, broken, lost. But no matter how much I hated her, the ache remained, the emptiness constant and unrelenting. I tried to fill it, tried to bury it beneath layers of cold indifference, but it persisted, a shadow that followed me wherever I went. I couldn't escape it, couldn't outrun the pain she had left behind. I became colder, more ruthless in my determination to forget. I isolated myself, severed ties with people who asked too many questions, avoided places that reminded me of her. I erased her from my life, piece by piece, memory by memory, until there was nothing left but the void she had created. But she still haunted me, lingering in the corners of my mind, in dreams that felt too real, too vivid. I would see her smile, hear her laugh, feel her touch, and then wake up to the cold, empty bed, the harsh reality of her absence. It felt like a cruel joke, a punishment I couldn't escape. I grew bitter, resentful, my heart hardening with every passing day. If she could move on so easily, then so could I. If she could erase me from her life, then I would do the same. I would not mourn her, would not grieve. She didn't deserve my pain, my tears. She didn't deserve anything from me. I convinced myself that I felt nothing, that I didn't miss her, didn't care. I repeated the lie until it became a habit, a routine that kept me moving, kept me from falling apart. I would not be broken by her. I would survive this, even if it meant turning my heart to ice. She was gone, and I would make sure she stayed gone, even from my memories. I would bury her, bury the pain, until there was nothing left but coldness. I would endure, even if it meant feeling nothing at all. Spring turned to summer, the days growing warmer, brighter, but I remained unchanged, untouched by the seasons. I moved through life mechanically, numb, unfeeling. Each day was a repetition of the last: work, exhaustion, sleepless nights haunted by memories I couldn't erase. I had trapped myself in a cycle, a routine that kept me moving, kept me from collapsing under the weight of her absence. I had grown skilled at pretending. To the outside world, I was fine, composed, unaffected. I went to work, completed my tasks with cold efficiency, exchanged polite words when necessary. I maintained the illusion of normalcy, a mask I wore to keep people at a distance. No one needed to know what was broken inside me. I avoided questions, sidestepped concern with practiced ease. Colleagues eventually stopped asking, their curiosity fading as they accepted the facade I presented. They didn't see the emptiness beneath, the hollow shell I had become. They didn't see the way her absence haunted me, the way her memory clung to every corner of my mind. I thought of her constantly, despite my best efforts to forget. She was there, in the shadows of my thoughts, in the quiet moments between distractions. I would catch myself remembering the way she smiled, the way she used to look at me, the way her voice softened when she said my name. It was infuriating, the way she still occupied my mind, even after everything she had done. I tried to fight it, tried to bury every memory beneath layers of anger, but they persisted, taunting me with reminders of what I had lost. I would walk through the house, past rooms that once held laughter, warmth, only to be confronted with a cold emptiness she had left behind. I had rearranged everything, erased every trace of her presence, but her ghost remained, haunting me with cruel persistence. The note she left echoed in my mind, her final words cutting deeper than any knife. This was the last year I spent with you. I could see the handwriting clearly, each letter deliberate, calculated. No explanation, no apology, just a cold, detached statement, as if 7 years meant nothing. As if I meant nothing. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't comprehend how she could walk away so easily, how she could live a double life, share herself with another family, another man for 7 years. 7 years of deception, of pretending to be my wife while giving her heart to someone else. It was unforgivable, unimaginable. I replayed every memory, every conversation, searching for answers I knew I would never find. I saw the signs now, the subtle clues I had ignored, the distant looks, the careful lies, the times she had pulled away when I tried to get close. She had been slipping away for years, right in front of me, and I had been too blind to see it. The anger grew, colder, sharper, hardening into resentment. I hated her for what she had done, for the lies she had told, for the years she had stolen. I hated her for making me believe in her, trust her, love her, while she was betraying me behind my back. I hated her for breaking me, for leaving me hollow, empty. But no matter how much I hated her, the pain remained, constant, unrelenting. I carried it with me, a wound that refused to heal, no matter how hard I tried to ignore it. I wanted to forget her, to erase every memory, but she was a part of me, woven into every corner of my life. I couldn't escape her ghost, couldn't outrun the ache of her absence. I grew colder, more distant, shutting down every emotion that threatened to surface. I couldn't afford to feel, couldn't afford to break. I had to stay strong, unyielding, even if it meant turning to stone. I had to survive this, even if it meant losing myself in the process. I severed ties, cut off connections that reminded me of her. Friends, family, anyone who mentioned her name, who looked at me with pity, who asked questions I didn't want to answer. I isolated myself, surrounded by walls I had built to keep the world out. I was safer this way, unreachable, untouchable. But no matter how high I built those walls, she found a way in, slipping through the cracks, haunting me with memories I couldn't escape. I would lie awake at night, her voice echoing in my mind, her laughter taunting me with its familiarity. I would see her face in my dreams, vivid, real, and wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there. I hated her for it, for the way she still held power over me, even after all she had done. I hated her for haunting me, for refusing to let me rest. I hated her for the memories that lingered, for the ghosts that wouldn't let me move on. I tried to forget her, tried to bury every thought, every emotion, but she was a part of me, woven into my past, my present, my pain. I couldn't escape her, couldn't outrun the memories we had shared. 7 years of love, of laughter, of moments that felt so real, so true. 7 years of lies, of deception, of betrayal. It was cruel, the way she had left, the way she had ended everything with a few cold words on a piece of paper. I wondered if she thought of me, if she remembered the life we had shared, or if she had erased me as easily as she had walked away. I wondered if she was happy, if she was living the life she chose, the life she had built with someone else. The thought of it was unbearable, the image of her laughing, smiling, loving someone else. It felt like poison, seeping into my veins, corroding everything I had left. I couldn't stand it, couldn't accept it. I had to forget her, had to erase her from my mind, my heart, my soul. I convinced myself that I felt nothing, that I didn't miss her, didn't care. I repeated the lie until it became a habit, a routine that kept me moving, kept me from falling apart. I would survive this, even if it meant feeling nothing at all. She was gone, and I would make sure she stayed gone, even from my memories, even if it meant burying every piece of myself along with her. Summer dragged on, long days stretching endlessly, filled with heat and light that mocked the coldness inside me. I moved through them in a haze, my mind trapped in the past, unable to escape the memories that haunted me. No matter how hard I tried to forget, she was there, lingering in every shadow, every corner of my mind. I went through the motions, existing rather than living. Work became my refuge, a distraction that numbed the pain, kept me from thinking. I threw myself into projects, deadlines, tasks that demanded my attention, tasks that left me too exhausted to feel. It was easier this way, to keep moving, to keep busy, to keep pretending that I was fine. But the facade was cracking. I could feel it, the pressure building, the anger festering beneath the surface. I was a ticking time bomb, wound tight with resentment, with bitterness that grew sharper each day. I hated her for what she had done, for the way she had left, for the way she had destroyed everything I thought was real. 7 years of lies. 7 years of deceit, of sharing herself with another family while pretending to be my wife. The thought of it made me sick, the realization of how thoroughly she had betrayed me. I replayed every moment, every conversation, every touch, dissecting them for signs I had missed. How could I have been so blind? How could I have been so foolish? The anger consumed me, a cold, corrosive force that hardened me, turned me to stone. I became ruthless, cutting off anyone who reminded me of her, who dared to mention her name. I erased her from my life, severed every connection, every tie that linked me to her. I wanted to forget her, to erase her from my mind, my heart, my soul. But no matter how hard I tried, she remained, a ghost I couldn't exorcise. She was in the silence of the house, in the empty spaces where her laughter used to echo. She was in the bed that felt too big, too cold, too empty. She was in the memories that haunted me, memories of love, of laughter, of moments that felt so real, so true. Moments that were nothing but lies. I grew colder, harder, my emotions locked away, unreachable. I refused to be vulnerable, refused to be broken by her. She didn't deserve my pain, my grief. She didn't deserve anything from me. If she could walk away without a backward glance, then I would erase her just as thoroughly. I would purge every memory, every emotion, until there was nothing left of her. But it was impossible. She was woven into the fabric of my life, a part of me that refused to be cut away. I saw her everywhere, in the places we used to go, in the things we used to do. I couldn't escape her, couldn't outrun the memories we had shared. They haunted me, relentless, unyielding, refusing to let me forget. I began to resent her ghost, the way it lingered, the way it taunted me with reminders of what I had lost. I hated her for the way she still held power over me, even after all she had done. I hated her for haunting me, for refusing to let me move on. I hated her for breaking me, for leaving me hollow, empty. But beneath the anger was pain, raw and unrelenting, a wound that refused to heal. I missed her despite everything. I missed her smile, her laughter, the way she used to curl up beside me, her warmth seeping into my skin. I missed the life we had shared, the life I thought was real, the life that was nothing but a lie. It was cruel, the way she had left, The way she had ended everything with a few cold words on a piece of paper. This was the last year I spent with you. No explanation, no confrontation, just a cruel, detached statement that shattered everything we had built. 7 years, reduced to a single sentence. 7 years, erased without a second thought. I couldn't forgive her. I wouldn't. She didn't deserve my forgiveness, my pain, my grief. She didn't deserve anything from me. If she could move on so easily, then so could I. I would harden my heart, turn to stone, feel nothing. I would bury every memory, every emotion, until there was nothing left but coldness. I convinced myself that I felt nothing, that I didn't miss her, didn't care. I repeated the lie until it became a habit, a routine that kept me moving, kept me from falling apart. I would survive this, even if it meant losing myself in the process. Even if it meant feeling nothing at all. But the anger persisted, cold and corrosive, eating away at me from the inside. I hated her for the way she had left, for the lies she had told, for the years she had stolen. I hated her for making me believe in her, trust her, love her, while she was betraying me behind my back. I hated her for breaking me, for leaving me hollow, empty. I became ruthless in my determination to forget. I erased her from my life, severed every tie, every connection. I refused to speak her name, refused to acknowledge her existence. She was gone, and I would make sure she stayed gone, even if it meant burying every piece of myself along with her. I would endure. I would survive, even if it meant feeling nothing at all. Summer faded, giving way to autumn's chill. Leaves turned brittle, falling in spirals, covering the ground like memories I wished to bury. But no matter how deep the layers grew, she remained, haunting me with echoes of a past that wouldn't stay silent. I thought the change in seasons would help, thought the cold air would numb the ache that lingered in my chest. But the pain was constant, unyielding, a wound that refused to heal. I carried it with me, heavy, suffocating, no matter where I went, no matter what I did. I kept busy, filled my days with tasks, responsibilities, obligations. I kept moving, kept working, kept pretending. It was easier that way, easier to hide behind the mask of indifference, easier to convince myself that I felt nothing, missed nothing, cared about nothing. But the truth was cruel. I missed her. I missed everything about her, even though I hated her. I missed her smile, her voice, her presence that once filled every corner of this house. I missed the life we shared, the life I thought was real. The betrayal cut deeper than I could express, a pain that burned cold, hollow. 7 years of lies, of deception, of pretending to be my wife while she belonged to someone else. It was unforgivable, unimaginable. I didn't know who she was anymore, didn't know if I ever did. I was haunted by questions, by doubts that twisted my memories into cruel reminders. I couldn't escape them, couldn't stop wondering. Was any of it real? Did she ever love me? Or was I just a convenience, a pawn in her double life? I wanted to forget her, to erase her from my mind, my heart, my soul. I wanted to hate her so completely that she became nothing more than a shadow, a ghost with no power over me. But the memories refused to fade, lingering like smoke, impossible to grasp, impossible to escape. I became colder, harder, retreating into myself, locking away every emotion, every weakness. I isolated myself, shut out the world, shut out everything that reminded me of her. I refused to be broken, refused to be vulnerable. If she could move on so easily, then so could I. I convinced myself that I felt nothing, that I didn't miss her, didn't care. I repeated the lie until it became a habit, a routine that kept me moving, kept me from falling apart. I would survive this, even if it meant losing myself in the process. She was gone, and I would make sure she stayed gone, even from my memories, even if it meant feeling nothing at all. Winter arrived with a bitter chill, cold winds howling through the empty house, seeping into every crack, every crevice. I welcomed the cold, embraced it, let it consume me. It was easier to feel nothing, easier to numb myself to the pain that refused to fade. I kept myself isolated, buried beneath layers of anger, resentment, bitterness. I shut out the world, refused to let anyone in, refused to let myself feel anything. Emotions were a weakness, a liability I couldn't afford. I had to stay strong, unyielding, even if it meant turning to stone. I erased every trace of her from my life. I threw out her belongings, deleted her pictures, burned her letters. I severed every connection, every tie that linked me to her. She was gone, and I was determined to forget her, to erase her from my mind, my heart, my soul. But no matter how hard I tried, she remained, a ghost that haunted me, slipping through the cracks, lingering in the shadows. I couldn't escape her, couldn't outrun the memories we had shared. They were woven into the fabric of my life, impossible to cut away. I was haunted by questions that had no answers, doubts that twisted my memories into cruel reminders. I couldn't stop wondering, was any of it real? Did she ever love me? Or was I just a convenience, a placeholder in her double life? I hated her for the lies she told, for the years she stole, for the way she made me believe in her, trust her, love her. I hated her for breaking me, for leaving me hollow, empty. I hated her for haunting me, for refusing to let me move on. I became ruthless in my determination to forget. I erased her from my life, erased her from my mind. I refused to speak her name, refused to acknowledge her existence. She was gone, and I would make sure she stayed gone, even from my memories. But the pain remained constant, unrelenting, a wound that refused to heal. I carried it with me, heavy, suffocating, no matter where I went, no matter what I did. I wanted to forget her, to erase every memory, every emotion, but she was a part of me, woven into my past, my present, my pain. I convinced myself that I felt nothing, that I didn't miss her, didn't care. I repeated the lie until it became a habit, a routine that kept me moving, kept me from falling apart. I would survive this, even if it meant losing myself in the process. But the truth was cruel. I missed her. I missed everything about her, even though I hated her. I missed the life we shared, the life I thought was real. I missed the person I thought she was, the person I loved, the person who never existed. She was gone, and I was lost, wandering through the cold, empty house, haunted by her ghost, haunted by memories that refused to fade. I didn't know who I was anymore, didn't know how to live without her. I was trapped in the past, trapped in pain, trapped in a love that had been nothing but a lie. The days blurred together, a haze of cold mornings and long nights that stretched endlessly. Time had lost meaning, slipping through my fingers like sand. I existed, but I wasn't living. I moved through the motions, completed tasks, went to work, did what was expected, but inside, I was frozen, stuck in the same place, unable to move forward. I had turned my life into a fortress, a place where nothing could reach me, where no one could see how broken I was. I became a master at wearing the mask, at pretending that I was fine, that I didn't carry the weight of her betrayal on my shoulders. No one could know what was beneath the surface. No one could see how deeply I had been scarred. But the isolation was suffocating. I wanted to scream, to shout, to throw myself into something that could take the pain away, but all I could do was remain silent. I couldn't let anyone in. I couldn't let anyone see how much I was hurting. The hurt was mine alone to carry, a burden I had to bear in silence. Every corner of my life reminded me of her. I couldn't escape it. The house, once full of warmth, now felt hollow, like a mausoleum to a life I had lost. I tried to fill the emptiness with distractions, books, music, work, but nothing worked. The void inside me remained, deep and endless. The memories of her came at odd times, like sharp flashes of light in the dark. I would hear her voice, her laugh, feel the warmth of her touch, and for a moment, I would forget everything. I would forget the lies, the betrayal, the years of deceit. For a moment, it felt like everything was as it had been. But then reality would crash back in, and I would remember that she was gone, that she had never truly been mine. I hated myself for missing her. I hated that despite everything she had done, despite the way she had left me, I still longed for her. The thought of her with someone else, laughing, loving, living a life that didn't involve me, it tore at me. It made my chest tighten with a grief I couldn't escape, but I couldn't show it. I couldn't let anyone see how much it hurt, how deeply I was affected by her absence. I couldn't let the world know how much I still loved her, even after everything. So I buried it. I buried the pain, the longing, the grief. I locked it away and told myself it didn't matter. I couldn't let her have any more of me. She had taken so much already, so much of my time, my love, my trust, and I refused to let her take my peace too. I had to stay strong. I had to move on. I told myself this every day, over and over, until it became a mantra. But no matter how many times I repeated it, I couldn't escape the truth. I wasn't okay. I wasn't fine. And I didn't know how to fix it. I wasn't ready to forgive her. I wasn't ready to let go of the anger, of the hurt. It was easier to hold on to the bitterness, to wear it like armor, than to face the truth of what had happened. To face the fact that she had been a stranger to me for years, that the life I thought we shared was built on lies. But still, I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe that love had meant something, that the years we had spent together weren't completely meaningless. I wanted to believe that there had been something real between us, something worth holding on to. But the harder I tried to hold on to that hope, the more it slipped through my fingers, like water from a broken cup. And so I did the only thing I could do. I let go. I stopped looking for answers that didn't exist. I stopped searching for meaning in a story that had already ended. I let go of her, not because I didn't love her anymore, but because I couldn't keep holding on to something that wasn't mine to keep. I couldn't keep living in the past, couldn't keep mourning what had been lost. I wasn't sure who I was anymore, or who I was becoming, but I knew that I couldn't stay stuck in this endless cycle. I couldn't keep torturing myself with memories of her, with hopes for a future that would never be. It was time to move on. And so I began, slowly, cautiously, step by step. It wasn't easy. It wasn't painless. But it was the only way forward. And as I took that first step, I couldn't help but wonder, was she also moving on? Or was she still haunted by the same memories, the same regrets that I had carried all this time? The truth was, I didn't know. And I didn't need to know. Because whatever her journey was mine to walk. The months passed in a blur, but slowly, I began to feel something new. A strange sense of freedom, of release, creeping into my life, like a soft breeze on a winter day. It wasn't a sudden change. It wasn't a grand revelation or an epiphany. It was quieter than that, gradual, almost imperceptible, but it was there. I began to let go. At first, it was just little things. I found myself thinking less about her, about the life we had shared. I didn't wake up every morning dreading the emptiness, didn't carry the weight of her absence on my shoulders like a stone. I allowed myself to feel the sun on my face, the comfort of silence, the occasional peace in solitude. I started to breathe again, without the constant pressure of her ghost hovering over me. I still remembered. I still carried the scars, but I no longer allowed them to define me. I didn't think about her as often, and when I did, it wasn't with the same pain that had once consumed me. It was more like an old wound, still there but no longer raw, no longer bleeding. I could look back now, see the truth for what it was, without it tearing at me. She had been a part of my life, a significant one, and while I would never forget what she had done, I realized that it didn't have to be all that I was. It wasn't about forgiveness, not yet, not in the way people would expect. It was about acceptance. Accepting that she had made her choice, and I had to make mine. It was about accepting that I couldn't change the past, couldn't undo the damage she had done, but I could shape my own future. And that future didn't have to be consumed by her. I was still angry at times. I still resented the years I had lost, the trust that had been shattered, the love that had been stolen. But that anger no longer controlled me. It was no longer the lens through which I viewed the world. I had learned to let it go, piece by piece, day by day. And in that process, I began to find myself again. Slowly, I started to feel whole, not because of her or because of anyone else, but because I realized that I had always been enough. That I didn't need validation from her or anyone to feel worthy. It was hard. There were days when the memories would surface, sharp and unexpected, but I no longer crumbled beneath them. I learned to sit with the pain, to acknowledge it without letting it consume me. I learned to embrace the discomfort of healing, the discomfort of growing. I still had questions, but the need for answers lessened. I didn't need to know if she was happy with the life she had chosen, if she ever thought about me, or if she regretted her decisions. It didn't matter anymore. Her life was hers, and mine was mine. And in that realization, I felt a sense of freedom that I hadn't known in years. Freedom from the past, from the weight of expectations, from the constant ache of wondering why. I no longer felt chained to her memory, no longer felt trapped by the life we had shared. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was moving forward. I still didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew I was walking in the right direction. And that, for now, was enough. It was time to close the door on the past, not with bitterness, but with a quiet understanding that some chapters just end. And that was okay. I could live with that. Because in the end, I had survived. And in that survival, I had found a piece of peace I thought I would never see again.